You know, some of our biggest challenges, they can feel like monsters lurking in the dark, right? But what if the key to beating them isn't about strength, but about stillness? Today, we're diving into an ancient Gambian folktale that holds this incredibly powerful, universal lesson about how to conquer the beasts that we fear the most.
All right, first things first, let's meet our monster, the Ninki Nanka. Just try to picture this thing rising up out of the swamps along the river Gambia. It's this insane combination of features. You've got the snapping jaws of a crocodile, the impossibly long neck of a giraffe, and this massive, scaled, coiling body of a serpent. I mean, it is literally the stuff of nightmares, a creature that seems designed for one purpose, to create pure dread.
And look, this wasn't just some spooky bedtime story for the people living there. The fear of the Ninki Nanka was very real, and its power was absolute. They said its gaze alone could kill you instantly. Its presence was so terrifying that whole communities were just paralyzed. Farms were abandoned, travel stopped. The monster didn't just kill, it was suffocating the life out of the entire region with crippling fear.
So, you gotta ask, how could one creature hold an entire community captive like that? Well, in this first part, we're gonna explore how the Ninki Nanka was way more than just a physical beast. It was this force of nature that actually fed on human panic.
This is where it gets really interesting, though. After all the spears and torches failed, the villagers started to understand something profound. They realized they weren't just fighting an animal. They were fighting a spirit wearing the skin of a beast. And that is the absolute crucial point, isn't it? You can't solve a spiritual problem with physical weapons. It just doesn't work.
And that, of course, brings us to our hero. Because if the problem is a spiritual force, then the hero has to be one too. See, a story like this needs a very specific kind of hero, not some muscle-bound warrior, but someone who gets what's really going on. So let's meet the man who could face it. Dawda Sanneh, a man of two worlds. So let's break this down. You've got these two totally opposite forces at the heart of the story. On one side, you've got the Ninki Nanka, a creature that thrives on chaos, on fear, on making people rush and panic. And on the other side, there's Dawda Sanneh. He's known as a Suleiman, a man of hidden knowledge, someone who can walk between the human world and the spirit world. He doesn't show up with weapons. He brings courage and wisdom.
And this is it. This is the classic call to adventure. A messenger, probably shaking, arrives from the terrorized village of Satakung. The monster is back, they've tried everything, and they are completely out of options. So they turn to the one person who might actually understand the true nature of their enemy.
And Dawda's response? It's just perfect. There's no hesitation, no big talk, just this simple, profound statement of purpose. He gets it. The antidote to fear isn't more aggression, it's courage. Simple as that. His mission is clear.
Okay, so this is where the story takes a turn you might not expect. This isn't about just charging into a fight, swords blazing. The real confrontation begins long before Dawda even lays eyes on the monster. It begins with his preparation.
Every single thing he does is a ritual. He's not sharpening a spear. He's purifying his body with secret water. He's tying 7 protective charms around himself and covering his body in white chalk to shield his soul. And that warning he gives the villagers is so important. No one can follow him. No one can even call out his name. This is a journey he has to take alone, a battle fought inside himself just as much as in the swamp.
So, as Dawda steps into the monster's territory, it's like the whole world just holds its breath. The natural sounds you'd expect in a swamp, they just stop. The frogs, silent. The birds, gone. Not even the wind makes a sound. This eerie silence is a powerful way to show he's entered a space completely controlled by the Ninki Nanka's power. Kind of like how overwhelming fear can silence everything else in our own lives.
And here we go. This brings us to the climax of the story. Dawda is finally face to face with the beast, and what he's about to discover is going to change everything.
So the Ninki Nanka goes for its ultimate weapon, that deadly stare. But Dawda came prepared. He doesn't try to fight it or withstand it, he deflects it. He holds up a blessed mirror, and the monster's own deadly power bounces right back at it. I mean, how brilliant is that? It's this perfect mix of spiritual wisdom and just plain smart tactics. But of course, it's not going to be that easy. As the monster lunges, Dawda holds his ground and starts to chant, Bismillah, Bismillah, in the name of God. He's not fighting this dark spirit with his own strength. He's calling on a higher, sacred power. His voice becomes its own kind of weapon, pushing back the creature's dark magic. And right then, in the middle of this chaos, something clicks.
Dawda remembers an old legend that a person with a pure heart can actually read a secret word written on the monster's forehead. The real solution isn't to destroy the beast, it's to understand it. The key to winning has been hiding in plain sight this whole time.
So he lifts his lantern, he looks right past those terrifying glowing eyes and the sharp teeth, and he reads the word sabali, patience. And in that 1 second, it all makes sense. This is a creature that feeds on haste, on panic, on fear. The one thing it absolutely cannot survive, the poison to its soul, is patience.
All right, so here's the most important part. Because knowing the monster's weakness is one thing, but actually becoming the antidote, that's something else entirely. Let's break down how Dawda uses this incredible revelation to actually win. In these final moments, Dawda doesn't attack. He does the complete opposite. He literally becomes sabali. He stands perfectly still. He slows down his breathing until he's totally calm. He just radiates this powerful stillness that a creature of pure chaos can't handle. And as his patience grows, the monster's strength just crumbles until it dissolves like smoke and disappears into the water. Get this, he didn't kill it. He just outlasted it.
And when he gets back to the village, Dawda drops this incredible piece of wisdom that sums up the entire story. It's a total game changer, right? Courage isn't always about charging forward. Sometimes the bravest, strongest thing you can possibly do is have the courage to stand still. And that's what brings this ancient story right into our lives today. The Ninki Nanka might be a myth, but the monsters it represents, anxiety, panic, that overwhelming sense of fear, those are very, very real. So the question this story leaves us with is this: what's your Ninki Nanka? And could the answer to defeating it be sabali, patience?
Dawda Sanneh kulobute no bendona Ninki Nanka bilobala amansona Dawda Sanneh bin fijoge jangal na nulu yanumana te Ninki Nanka sope kunajul bakaniya non jasna
Off, Dawda Sanneh had done the impossible. He'd defeated the monstrous Ninki Nanka, the kind of victory that makes a person a legend. But here's the thing about legends. Killing the monster is often just the beginning. The real test is what comes after. And for a little while, everything was perfect. You can just imagine the relief in the village of Sutakung. The monster was gone. People could finally go back to their lives. Farmers tended their crops, women went to the river without looking over their shoulders, kids could play outside again. That dark cloud they'd been living under, it was finally gone. But while the village celebrated, the story was, well, it was far from over. See, in the unseen world, the spirit world, killing the Ninki Nanka wasn't just the end of a threat. It was the start of a whole new problem. It had thrown everything out of balance. What the villagers didn't fully grasp was that the Ninki Nanka wasn't just some random beast. It was a Jinn Jalof. Think of them as ancient guardian spirits, protectors of the swamps and wild places. They were part of a sacred pact between people and nature. So by killing one, Dawda had, without meaning to, broken an ancient law, and a debt had just been created. It took about 3 weeks. Just as the village was getting comfortable with its newfound peace, the spirit world started to push back. And it didn't start with a roar or an attack. No, it was much creepier than that. It started with whispers. Strange, unnatural signs that something was deeply wrong. First, the river, their lifeblood, turned strangely warm. Then, the crocodiles, who'd been there forever, just left. They all migrated upstream, as if fleeing something. The trees fell silent because all the birds had disappeared. And then came the drums. Every single night, you could hear this slow, sorrowful drumming coming from the swamp, but there was no one there. And you know how it goes in a village. The whispers started. People knew this wasn't right. You could feel it in the air. The world was out of whack, and the first conclusion everyone jumped to was something powerful is angry with us. That fear very quickly turned into something more specific. This wasn't just random anger. This felt personal. This felt like payback, vengeance for the guardian spirit that they had allowed to be killed. And that paranoia climaxed with a truly terrifying thought. What if it wasn't just any spirits? What if the Ninki Nanka's family, older, stronger, more ancient beings, had been woken up and were coming for them? Now, while the rest of the village was hiding in fear, Dawda Sanneh saw things differently. He knew these weren't just random threats. It was a message, and he understood that he couldn't run from this. He started it, and he was going to have to be the one to face it. So one morning, he walks down to the riverside, and there it is. The message he'd been waiting for. Scratched into the mud by what looked like a gigantic claw were 4 simple, chilling words. Return what you took. The demand couldn't be clearer. The village elders panicked, and they basically split into 2 camps. The first group said, Dawda, you have to leave. They only want you. If you go, maybe they'll leave us alone. The other group wanted to go the traditional route. Let's offer sacrifices, spill more blood to pay for the blood that was already spilled. But Dawda, he rejected both ideas. He saw that running was based on fear and that more violence would just make things worse. He had a different idea, a radical one. He said you don't fight spirits and you don't fear them. You talk to them. So, on a night when the moon hung in the sky like a big red warning light, Dawda Sanneh walked into the swamp, alone. The villagers were hiding in their homes, terrified. But he walked right towards the heart of the danger, ready for a trial that would decide everything. And look at what he brought with him. No weapons, no spear, no sword. He carried a lantern to bring light to the darkness, a mirror for truth and reflection, and a calabash of holy water for purity. This was never going to be a battle of strength. This was a trial of the soul. When he got to the water's edge, 3 ghostly figures rose from the mist. The Ninki Nanka spirits, and their first question boomed with centuries of grief and anger. Why did you kill our brother? Dawda didn't even flinch. He just answered with the honest-to-goodness truth. The Ninki Nanka had forgotten its job. Its sacred duty was to protect, but it had chosen to bring terror instead. It had broken the balance first. But the spirits, they roared back with their own truth. And you know what? They had a point. From their perspective, it was the humans who had pushed too far, who had stopped respecting the old ways and the sacred places. This wasn't a one-sided argument. But after all the arguments, it came down to one unshakable law of the spirit world. Balance must be restored. A life was taken, so a life must be given. The price to heal the world was Dawda's soul. And right here, this is where the entire story turns on its head. This was no longer a trial about who was right or wrong. It became a test of character, a test of what being a hero really truly means. Instead of fighting or begging or trying to bargain, Dawda did something nobody expected. He just closed his eyes and offered himself. He said, if my life is what it takes to bring peace, then take it. A complete, selfless surrender for his people. And the spirits, they just stopped. Because in their ancient, powerful world, an act of true, willing self-sacrifice was the purest form of spiritual power there is. It was more powerful than any magic, any charm, any ritual of vengeance. It completely short-circuited their rules. The eldest spirit's voice was different now. It was quiet. It recognized that Dawda's courage was the offering. His willingness to die was the sacrifice, not his death itself. And just like that, the debt was paid. The balance was restored. Dawda walked out of that swamp as the sun came up. He was unharmed. The red moon was gone, replaced by a silver one. The drums were silent. The haunting was over. But he came back a different man, carrying a whole new understanding of what it means to be a hero. And that was the lesson he taught his people. It was a total shift in perspective. The greatest hero wasn't the guy who could kill a monster. The greatest hero was the one with the courage to offer himself to create peace. And that right there became his true legacy. He wasn't just remembered as the man who killed the Ninki Nanka. He was remembered as the man who healed the wound between the human world and the spirit world. He didn't just want to fight, he created harmony. Dawda's story leaves us with this huge question, doesn't it? It really makes you think about what we consider courage and what we consider strength. And it asks us to wonder if maybe, just maybe, the greatest victory isn't about defeating an enemy, but about finding a way to make peace.
Welcome to The Explainer. Today we're diving into a powerful myth that really flips the whole idea of heroism right on its head. It asks a pretty tough question. What if a hero's greatest victory was actually their biggest mistake? Yeah, this is a story about unintended consequences and what it truly means to save the world. So, our story kicks off years after the famous hero Dawda Sanneh defeated the terrifying Ninki Nanka. His village, Sutukenhung, was thriving. Kids were playing without a care in the world, the river was bountiful, and this incredible sense of calm just settled over everything.
But, that kind of quiet is always a little fragile, isn't it? Deep, deep beneath the earth, in these caverns that had never seen the light of day, something was stirring. A threat way older and way more dangerous than anything they had ever imagined. Okay, so let's get into it, because this is where the world starts to show the first little cracks, the first signs that this long peace is about to be shattered.
The warnings, they started small, but they were deeply creepy. The river water would turn pitch black at night. Birds just up and left the mangroves. The whole natural order was just off. You could feel this sense of dread just creeping into the village air.
And then the threat became terrifyingly real. Dawda Sanneh has this vision, right? And in it, he's visited by the spirit of the Ninki Nanka. Yep, the exact same beast he defeated, but it wasn't there as an enemy. It was a messenger with this absolutely chilling and urgent warning.
So this vision, it basically confirms all of Dawda's worst fears. These omens weren't just random bad luck. They were symptoms of a waking nightmare. And now, this ancient evil actually has a name, and he knows he's the one who has to face it.
And it only took a few days for that nightmare to literally break through the ground. A massive crack tore right through the rice fields, leaking this foul-smelling smoke like burning iron and rot. The danger wasn't a dream anymore. It was right there, under their feet.
And listen, we are not talking about some ordinary spirit here. The old stories, they whispered about these Earth Guardians, these primordial titans that were sealed away when the world was basically brand new. And the one waking up now? The oldest, most feared of them all, the Kung Khan, the Earth Ear.
So Dawda knew right away that swords and spears were not going to cut it. He was facing something from before humanity. So he prepares not for a physical fight, but for a sacred, spiritual confrontation. Every single item he gathered, from the Baobab staff to an amulet holding the literal breath of a jinn, was just steeped in ancient power. As Dawda gets to the fissure, the ground just explodes. A whirlwind of smoke and fire erupts, and out of it rises this massive shape made of cracked stone and molten light. He was finally face to face with the Ancient One. Now, the Titan's first words weren't a threat. It was a shocking accusation, and one that completely turned Dawda's entire legacy on its head. It basically said, yeah, you brought peace up there, but in doing so, you broke the entire world down here.
And Dawda, he's obviously confident in what he's done. He's like, what are you talking about? I defeated a monster. I brought peace. How could that possibly be wrong? He just can't wrap his head around what the Titan is saying.
And then the Titan drops the bombshell. The Ninki Nanka wasn't just some monster terrorizing the swamp. It was a guardian, a living, breathing seal that was put there to keep this much, much greater power, the Kung Kung Kankan, locked away deep inside the earth. And in that one moment, Dawda's entire life's work is just shattered. His most celebrated act of heroism, the very foundation of his legend, was the exact thing that had just doomed his people. By killing the Guardian, he had unlocked the prison.
So what do you even do then? Dawda figures out pretty quickly that trying to fight a literal force of nature with physical weapons is just pointless. He had to find a whole new way to fight this battle.
These sacred tools, that powerful staff, the amulet, they just shattered against the Titan's raw power. He was completely overwhelmed in the physical world. So, he shifts his focus. He closes his eyes and dives into the inner realm, the world of pure spirit, to fight this thing on a whole different level.
And who does he meet there in the inner realm? The spirit of his old enemy, the Ninki Nanka. But it's not an enemy anymore. It's an ally, offering him the only possible way to win, to merge their spirits together and restore the balance they had both once been a part of.
So fused with the ancient power of the Ninki Nanka's spirit, Dawda returns to the physical world, literally glowing with this sacred energy. He raises his hands and he shouts these ancient words of sealing, words with so much power they could command the very earth itself.
And just like that, the ground opens up. Chains of pure light wrap around the Titan, dragging it back into the darkness it came from. The battle was won, but it took everything out of Dawda, and it left him with one final, crucial piece of wisdom to share.
When the villagers find him, he's not boasting about his victory. He gives them a prophecy, a warning. He teaches them that peace isn't some permanent prize you win. It's a delicate balance that has to be constantly watched over and protected.
So in the end, he didn't just defeat a monster. He corrected his own, universe-altering mistake. And by doing that, he completed a heroic journey that was unlike any other, becoming a true legend, not just for his strength, but for his incredible wisdom.
And that, right there, is the brilliant heart of this whole myth. It really makes you look at your own victories and wonder about their unseen consequences. Dawda's story is this powerful reminder that sometimes an ending is really just the beginning of a brand new, unforeseen challenge.
tabax réew mi faratal di waajal ndaw ñeeñu yowi xel yee te defar jikko yee ndax xare bi lee du xare nit te ñu rëdd suñuy yoon ti dox ci naataange
details not just a man's death, but his whole spiritual transition. It's really like a map of acceptance.
It truly is. And, you know, what strikes you right away is the atmosphere the text creates.
Yeah.
The source starts by setting this sacred tone. It describes an unusually still night, so quiet that even the wind seemed afraid to whisper.
Wow.
That immediately signals that this isn't some mundane event. This is a moment where the two worlds, the spiritual and the physical, they're about to align.
And the setting itself just underlines that, doesn't it?
Absolutely.
Our main figure, this man named Dawda, he's sitting under an ancient baobab tree. And, you know, the text is very clear. This isn't just any tree. It's watched over generations.
Which is such a vital connection. In so many African cosmologies, the baobab is the tree of life. It's the pillar that connects heaven and earth, the axis mundi.
So if the baobab is that world axis, then Dawda is sitting right at the convergence point.
He's literally at the center of his physical and spiritual existence.
Yeah. And then you have this other image, the moon. It's described as glowing like a great calabash filled with milk.
what does that specific imagery suggest to you?
Well, a calabash filled with milk. That's all about fullness, purity, sustenance. It's a very positive, life-affirming image.
Yeah, which is so interesting because it's happening just as his physical strength is failing.
Exactly. And the source explains why it's failing. It's not sickness, it's destiny. He was chosen.
Oh, okay.
And that one word just reframes the entire event. It's no longer a tragedy. It becomes this sacred appointment.
So if he's chosen, he has to be formally summoned.
Yes.
Which brings us to these spiritual beings that arrive. The Kujar. What are they? What do they do?
The Kujar are essentially the guides for the soul, the psychopomps. And their arrival isn't loud or frightening.
Right.
It's a soft humming, some faraway drums, and it says, chants only spirits could sing. So it's an experience that only the recipient can really process.
And what do they look like?
They're described as tall, glowing, and wrapped in white cloth that never touch the ground.
Okay, that last detail, the cloth not touching the ground, why is that so crucial?
It's all about absolute purity, a total separation from the earthly realm. You know, soil can represent contamination, worldly concern.
So they're untouched.
Completely. They exist solely in the spiritual sphere, which gives their summon so much authority.
And they address him formally. Dawda, son of Jada.
And they confirm his fate. Your true journey begins tonight. It's not a question, it's a statement, a ratification of a spiritual contract.
And his reaction is really the key here. He felt neither fear nor sadness, only peace.
It's the highest honor. It shows he's lived a full life, that he's ready. The transition is voluntary, it's celebrated.
And as soon as that happens, the path literally opens up for him.
It really does. The earth beneath him glows with these lines of light, stretching out into the darkness. It's this very literal idea that when the spiritual journey begins, the way to travel will just appear.
And he's not entirely alone, is he? Even though he's the only one physically there.
No, not at all. He sees faint outlines of his entire bloodline, his ancestors.
Wow.
Ancient warriors, hunters, queens. This isn't just his immediate family. It's the whole powerful history of his people.
And they're beating drums?
Beating drums that sync up with his fading heartbeat. Boom, boom, boom.
That's profound. So his own individual transition is being welcomed into this collective history.
Exactly. His exit isn't a solitary event. And before he fully commits, he does one last thing. He looks back at his village and whispers a blessing. May peace remain with them.
And only then does he step onto the path. His body feels lighter, the pain just dissolves, the journey has truly begun.
And this is where the folktale adds its next layer of complexity. The spirit guides.
Right. Let's really get into these because this is where the symbolism gets so specific. Halfway down the path, he meets 3 animal guides.
Yeah, and the story says they've watched over him since birth. They're here to confirm his virtues.
Okay, let's break them down because the choices are so nuanced. Starting with one that might seem, well, contradictory, a white hyena, which is named as the symbol of courage.
And this is such a fascinating cultural pivot, isn't it?
Totally, because in many other narratives, the hyena is a scavenger, a trickster.
Right, it can be a negative figure. But here, the description is specific. It's a white hyena, and that color, white, it immediately elevates it. It strips away the earthly baggage and signifies purity.
So it's not about scavenging, it's about a different kind of courage. A primal courage, maybe? The tenacity you need to face the ultimate unknown.
Precisely. The hyena's ability to survive against all odds is reframed as a high spiritual virtue.
And what does it say to him?
It tells him, fear nothing. That's the first mandate for a transitioning soul. Leave all your earthly anxieties behind.
Okay, so after that raw courage, we get the majestic black eagle, which is the symbol of vision.
A more traditional symbol, maybe, but its purpose here is so specific.
Right, because why do you need vision at this point in the journey?
It's about seeing your life from a place of totality. Not from the ground, looking the details, but from high above. It's about perspective.
Ah, so the vision isn't about seeing the future, it's about validating the past.
Exactly. It's like the final ethical review before you reach the gate.
And the eagle's perspective confirms that he lived with a clean heart.
It synthesizes his entire life into one clear, affirmative statement. You are worthy.
And that brings us to the third guide, the gentle forest elephant, representing wisdom.
Yes, a universal connection, but the implications here are so deeply tied to the culture.
The elephant is the keeper of memory, right? They live so long, they're so connected to the land. They see generations come and go.
And that's precisely how its wisdom translates for Dawda. The elephant connects him directly to his legacy.
So wisdom in this case isn't just knowing facts.
No, it's knowing how things endure, how stories endure. And the elephant offers him the most important promise for the living. It says, your story will not end. It will be retold to your grandchildren yet unborn.
And that assurance feels like it's almost more important than the courage or the clean heart.
I think it is.
Yeah.
Because it guarantees his continued relevance to the living community. His journey isn't just for him, it's for the survival of the narrative itself.
It's an incredible thought. His successful transition is directly linked to the need for oral tradition.
He's being given the spiritual guarantee that his life's work, his wisdom, won't be forgotten. He'll have eternal life through memory.
So with his virtues now confirmed and his legacy guaranteed, he reaches the final stage.
The final stage. The Kujar reappear, and they bring him to the gate.
And the description of this gate is just stunning.
It really is. It's massive, made of woven light and shadows, and it shimmers like water touched by moonlight. It's this boundary that's somehow both solid and completely ethereal.
And the Kujar confirm what it is.
They do. They say, behind this gate is peace. Behind this gate is home. So the destination isn't a final ending. It's a return, a homecoming.
And the moment he crosses the threshold, the transformation is instantaneous.
Yes, the text describes his tired, earthly body transforming into a being of pure light. He's described as strong, youthful, and glowing like a star. He doesn't just transition. He's perfected.
He's elevated. All the physical constraints are gone.
Completely gone. His spiritual essence is fully realized. And the ancestors are cheering, the drums rise, and then this omnipresent voice confirms his new role.
This is the functional conclusion, isn't it? What his new job is.
It is. He's now a guardian, a storyteller, a protector of your people.
So he hasn't just been absorbed into some cosmic energy. He's been given a job that directly serves the community he just left.
Which is a major insight into this culture's view of the afterlife. The elders don't retire. They graduate into these active roles of ancestral influence. He's maintaining a connection, not severing it.
And then the narrative gives us this beautiful contrast. It cuts from this huge spiritual climax back down to earth.
Back to the baobab tree at sunrise. The villagers find Dawda's body, and it's described as completely peaceful and smiling, as if he were simply sleeping.
And that image confirms for the living community that this was a sacred event.
Exactly. There's no confusion, no prolonged grief. The elders see him, and they immediately understand. They say, the ancestors have taken him.
That's it, acceptance.
It prevents fear from taking hold and disrupting the community.
And then there's one final reassurance, which is just the perfect final touch.
Cherry on top, really.
That very same night, a soft wind blows through the village, and it carries Dawda's voice.
And his message is simple. I am watching over you. It solidifies his new role as an immediate, functioning protector. The loop is closed.
It's perfect. The whole structure of the story, from that sacred tree to the celestial gate and then back to the village wind, it all just reinforces the continuity of life.
Not its end. And all those symbols we talked about, the pure white hyena, the nurturing moon, they gave us the cultural map for why Dawda was worthy of this path.
So we've traced his whole journey, from being chosen by destiny, going through this really structured spiritual transition, and then being anointed as an eternal guardian. This isn't just a myth. It's a functioning cosmic framework for that community.
It is. And the key takeaway, I think, is recognizing that Dawda's ultimate identity in the afterlife, as a guardian, a storyteller, and a protector, is profoundly functional. His new job is directly linked to the mechanism that transmits knowledge.
And that brings us all the way back to the power of the folktale itself, the very source we just looked at. If the elephant promised that Dawda's story would be retold, and Dawda himself is now a perpetual storyteller for his people, what does that imply about the relationship between the story and the ancestor?
And this raises a really interesting question for you, the listener, to think about. If Dawda's power relies on his story being retold, is the act of keeping his journey alive, the very act of sharing and listening to this tale, is that the ultimate living form of his protection over his people?
In other words, does the survival of the narrative equal the ongoing survival and function of the ancestor?
Exactly.
That gives the act of listening a sacred dimension, doesn't it? Something to think about long after the wind dies down. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive.